Do it scared. I feel like
Okay.
a lot of people will get to the point where they're about to do something and they decide that it's too scary or maybe
Mm,
they're not good enough. But I think that you really owe it to yourself to go for it because you only live one life. Life is very short.
you have built something really unique with your business, Good Eye Aesthetics. It's a branding
Yeah.
boutique.
My position was going to be dissolved. And I said, well, I'm going to use this entire new year to start my own business and really go for all of the things that I've ever wanted. Even though I'm not going to know what it's going to look like, I'm going to go for it.
Hello, Regan. Welcome to the show. How are you
Hi,
today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So I know it's quite early at your end, which is, I believe, it's 4:30 in the morning. So thank you so much for
Yes,
being flexible and
of
joining this
course.
interview.
Absolutely.
Right. Look, without any further delay, I would like to quickly jump into this question where um, you have built something really unique with your business, which is Good Eye Aesthetics. It's a branding
Yeah.
boutique,
hmm
and I'm curious to know that what was the turning point that led you to launch Good Eye Aesthetics branding business?
Sure. Well, I actually secured the domain for the business about 2 years before I officially filed the LLC and made it a real business.
Okay.
Um, I had the idea for a while. I've always been the person where people are like, "Can you help me with this?" I've always been drawn to color palettes and Pinterest and making things beautiful.
Mm,
And I've always wanted to work for myself. And I thought that the quote unquote, the right thing that I needed to do in order to also pursue a career as an opera singer would be to have a remote or semi remote 9 to 5 job. I tried that for a year. It wasn't for me. And I decided that I was being nudged in the direction of starting this business when I found out that my position was going to be dissolved because they ran out of funding. So I was told the day before my birthday, March
oh,
25th, that my position was going to be dissolved. And I said, well, I'm going to use this entire new year when I turn 26 to start my own business and really go for all of the things that I've ever wanted. Even though I'm not going to know what it's going to look like, I'm going to go for it.
mm,
And so that's kind of what led me to start the business.
okay. Are you still working 9 to 5, or are you a
No.
full time entrepreneur?
I'm a full-time entrepreneur and,
Right.
I also am a Pilates instructor. So I have a couple of different revenue streams going. I think that no matter what you do, even if you're starting off a business, even if you have a successful business, I
Mm,
think you should always have multiple streams of income because it takes the pressure off of any creative pursuits or businesses you have. I
yeah.
read this book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she's the same author who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, which is a very popular book. And she said in the book that this book's about her creative process, that she did not want to put too much financial strain and pressure on her writing. So she made an agreement with herself that she would not quit a waitressing job until she got to a certain point with her writing.
Mm,
And that at first when I read it, I saw that as being kind of like a failure. But I actually now really understand what she was saying. And so I just want to make sure that with all of my different pursuits that I have going on, that I'm able to balance everything out in regards to finances. So it doesn't pull from the creativity and all of the work that I do.
that's interesting because you are someone, you are multifaceted. You are opera singer. You have other um,
Mhm.
streams where you can generate revenue. But think about someone who are working 9 to 5, and they're committed to their work life, and all of a sudden they've been asked to leave, or they or things change and they want to start a business.
Mhm. Yeah.
They decide to start a business. So what is your advice to them?
Do it scared. I feel like
Okay.
a lot of people will get to the point where they're about to do something and they decide that it's too scary or maybe
Mm,
they're not good enough. but I think that you really owe it to yourself to go for it because you only live one life. Life is very short. And look at the people that you have around you in your life. You never know which friends and family members might have a skill set where they are willing to help you and support you and encourage you as you're building a business. My dad is
Mm.
an accountant. I can run any financial question by
Oh,
him.
wonderful.
And I feel like he's also really encouraged me to become really financially literate. And I feel like when you're starting a business, it's kind of like you have to give yourself grace because you are learning how to run a business whilst building the business at the same time.
Right.
And so I would say to try and be like a human sponge and absorb as much information as you can from other successful business owners, listening to podcasts, and just also giving yourself balance in in your schedule so you aren't burning yourself out and having some tangible goals to work towards.
Now you mentioned your dad is an accountant. You took his help to set up the
Yeah.
business. I believe from a costing perspective, pricing perspective, that's what you'd have taken his help. Um, my question is, how is your business doing right now, and how long it's been running? How long the business has been in the market, and how is it doing right now
Mhm.
from a revenue perspective? If you don't mind to share.
Yeah. Sure, of course. I officially filed the LLC. It became effective in April,
Okay.
and I transitioned out of my 9 to 5 towards the end of May.
Mm,
And within 2 weeks, I had my first client. So that was very exciting.
wow.
Um, and yeah, so right now with my business, I'm netting about a new client every week. And because my business is project based, um, I'm trying to meet people where they're at and give like customized packages right now. And I'm at the point of about like meeting my living expenses with my business, which, and then I'm supplementing my income with teaching Pilates in addition, which I was always going to do regardless. I really love helping people, as you can tell. So I love helping people make things beautiful, make themselves feel beautiful. Um, so I'm able to accomplish multiple things at once whilst also monetizing. And I just had a really successful first business trip where I got paid to go to an antique show in Texas with a home and lifestyle brand and help with the procurement of furniture and inventory for their brand and also do some content creation. And that was about 3/4 of what a month's living expenses would be for me. So I'm at the point of breaking even currently
Okay. You know
with
what? This changes the whole equation of running a business. I normally hear that it takes a while, maybe 12 months to start seeing profits coming in, or a break even as well. But in your case, looks like it end of May you got the first client, and then gradually you scaled up. You got a second client and third client and fourth client, and now you're quite doing okay. And eventually, I believe this will start ramping up as well as years to
Mhm.
come.
I hope so
Um,
because I would love for right now still, and obviously when it's your own business, I feel like you're always looking for ways to improve.
mm,
And like I'm already redoing the Good Eye Aesthetics website because I feel like my skill set has already, shifted and what I'm offering, like things are evolving. So I would like to ultimately have more clients and be able to scale my business. And so I technically now have my first employee to help me with client relations
really?
and sales. Yeah.
Well,
Um
congrats. That's
that
that's
just
great
started.
news.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Because there's only so many things I have to acknowledge my shortcomings. There's only 24 hours in the day
Mm,
and one me, and I can only do so much. So I'm trying to learn how to gradually delegate in a way that's
yep.
sustainable. So that is where I presently live with the
Nice.
business. Yeah.
Question is, how did you get your first
Yes.
client? What was the strategy, or how did you influence or
Yeah.
convince your
My
first client?
Well, my first client came to me, which was really cool. I
How did that
I
happen? I mean, what
post
what do you mean came to me? Did you
social media.
Okay. Yeah.
So I
Take me through that process. I mean, if you don't mind. I mean,
yeah, so something that I find really interesting in the current market is people want to feel connected to founders and to people running their own businesses. And when they feel like they personally know you from social media, then they are wanting to work with you more than a business that
mm,
feels less personal. And it was from, I posted a day in the life vlog on Instagram, and it was an old acquaintance from school like several years ago that I didn't know super well, but she liked seeing the behind the scenes and that made her curious. So that made a subconscious call to action for somebody to look at my business and see what I'm doing. So that's how that evolved. And obviously, I had to have a first meeting and talk through like, what is she looking for? How can I best help and fill the gaps? And I always send people a client intake form before I meet with them for the first time so I can best prepare for the meeting. And so I just talked through with her like what her vision is and how I can help her with website
mm,
design and with branding. Because a lot of artists, if you're a classical musician, you can be in the practice room for like 6 hours a day if you're an instrumentalist. And so that means that you don't have the brain space to think about color palettes and what fonts you want to have on a website, right? So
mm,
I am able to kind of talk through the process with them. It's for me, it's more collaborative than a lot of other designers because you know your brand better than anybody else and you
yep.
know like what's at the core of you. And so I, with her, went through the branding process, made a mood board. And so for me, I feel like my biggest value add is that I am walking people through a process of kind of further refining who they are, not as a human being, but as a brand and as a business. And that's something that I feel like is kind of hard to do if you don't have a third party perspective in a sense.
Right.
So
Yep.
I had a consult with her and gave her a couple of package proposals, and she selected something that worked best for her. And something that I also offer that is different is I want to grow with your business. I don't want to just make you something and then never talk
Mm,
to you again. So I allow for there to be scalability within packages and services that I offer because a brand is a living, breathing thing, and you that means that it needs to evolve, right? So I suggested like this is where you're at right now, these are your goals, this is something that you need to consider with your marketing, you have an album coming out, this is the timeline, let's do this, have a volume 1 of your website published, and then once you do a full branding shoot and have another album release, then we'll update it and I will educate you on what that looks like and how to best represent yourself online. Because a lot of people really want to post on social media and do all of the things. But when you're an artist specifically,
mm,
sometimes it's hard to build structure.
right. Yep.
And because it's like a different side of your brain, right? So I am using the fact that I have a little bit of both. I'm a little bit more creative than strategic, but because of having to analyze classical music and all of these other things in school,
Mm,
I feel like I've gotten a strategic mind. Excuse me. And I got thrown into running an entire marketing department in my 9 to 5 when that wasn't my planned job. So because things happen, so I used that as an opportunity to learn how to build systems. And I took that knowledge and I'm teaching people how to build infrastructure for themselves as well.
mm.
So that's kind of how I got her, was
Your first client.
helping her
Okay.
and her more type B brain and give structure and focus. And I think they also with businesses, they want to work with the person, you know? They want to know that you're approachable and that you care about them because I do. So I think that initial first meeting is super important, but the first impression is frequently on social media.
Okay. Someone listening might say, okay, Regan, your first client could be coincidence, could be by accident. They must have stumbled upon your Instagram post and they must have had a chat and okay, perfect. You
Mhm.
tick the box and the client is happy. How did you get your second client and your third client? I'm curious about
Yeah,
that.
sure. Right. You're like, how did they just happen upon you? Um, I hate to say that my second client also happened to came to me. But that's not a coincidence. You have to consider the fact that with social media and with having effective marketing funnels, there should be a level of automation if you're structuring things well and you're giving people an impetus to want to work with you and to want to connect with you. And also, word of mouth is really important, especially when you're starting off. And I just made sure to I was old fashioned. I went into businesses. I talked to people. I got to know them before I even pitched any services. I would maybe go into a business one time before, kind of
Hmm.
observe, see what their needs are, have kind of just have casual conversation with whoever's working there, if it's the owner. And then if I come back in a second time and they seem like they're in the mood or like they need help, then I would go and approach them and just talk to them human to human and say like, I understand I'm building a small business as well. Is there anything I can do to help fill the gaps? This is where I feel like I'm really strong. And also having samples of your work and having materials with you at all times. So I'm a physical and digital person. I always have business cards on me. I always have postcards with scope of services. And I always have a calendar link ready for people to sign up and pick a time,
Hmm.
or I can schedule it with them just to close that loop. But yeah, people have been coming to me, which is great. And then the part of the reason why I've brought somebody to help me with sales and closing the loop with clients is because design work takes a long time. And so does admin behind the scenes sort of things. So I actually have noticed some growing pains with trying to figure out how much time I can dedicate towards lead generation because obviously without leads you don't have sales and you don't have money. So
Right.
um so social media has been really big, but also like people underestimate having a face-to-face conversation with another person
I'll
and
stop you there. I'm sorry.
offering.
I'm
Mhm.
sorry. When you say face to face, are you talking about physically meeting someone over a cup of coffee,
Yes.
or is it virtual
Yeah.
chat you're talking about, like physical? Okay.
Face to face in person. Of course, obviously the digital element is possible, but if they're in your vicinity, then I think that it is actually more impactful to be face to face, like
Why do you
having a
say
cup
that?
of coffee in person.
How is it
Well,
impactful?
I think that people are ultimately looking humans at the end of the day are looking for connection and they're looking to be seen. And I feel like when you're through a screen, there's a barrier there. But when you're having a cup of coffee or I was having a facial when I was talking to an esthetician about helping her with some fractional marketing material generation and stuff for her business, you're connecting with that person like
Right.
in the
Yep.
same
Yep.
room. And I think that that kind of creates more of a sense of urgency because the person is there and you can see that they're tangible. And when you're online, they could be meeting with Zooms like back to back to back, and you can kind of just
Mm,
slip through the cracks.
yep. Understand. When you missed your okay, I'm gonna be bit blunt here. So, did you had a game
Sure.
plan thinking about okay, I need to secure for my first 5 clients, no matter what they're proposing, I'm happy to be flexible from a pricing point of view to
Hmm.
get them on board, or where you firm this is what my services and this is what my price package is. What I was just want to understand how much room did you
Hmm.
had for to have some buffer to make sure from a pricing point and also not compromising
Hmm.
on the quality of work, because someone who's listening may be
Yeah.
confused right now. I want to start a business. How do I
Hmm.
convince my first or second or third client to come on board? At the same time, I don't want to lose too much of
Yes.
money as
So
well. You know what I mean?
yeah, relationship building is super important. And I was strategic where I said that my first five clients are going to be considered founding clients. And so then they get special rates.
Oh, okay.
So I
Okay.
consider them founding clients. And that was like more of like a marketing promo. So people would know like a founding client would initially have certain pricing or a certain benefit. Um, so I was strategic about it. because you do have to ultimately be more firm in your pricing. And I
Yep.
think that the more clientele and the more experience that you have and the more beefed up your portfolio becomes, because my business is service based, then you can additionally like raise your prices over time and then your clientele might shift. But I also like a lot of people's websites that I've been doing are people that might be like still in school or starting out as like an artist that doesn't have like, a $3,000 budget for like a full website build. So then with that, I would kind of ask them what their needs are. And perhaps their budget is lower. And the happy medium for this point in time for
Yep.
them is a really robust landing page. And so that's not
Yep.
necessarily me having lower prices, it's just scaling down to where they're at and then giving them the invite and incentivization of coming back to me when they have the means to build a full website. So I'm making that relationship with them, which I think the ROI will be really valuable with because they're going to be like, I remember that girl that was willing to help me when I could not afford a full website. She helped me start my digital presence. I want to go back and continue to work with her.
Work with her. Okay.
And so, yeah.
No, thanks for that. You mentioned about special price for first 5 clients. Is that
Mhm.
something, did you advertise when you launched your business, or was it just you had it in your head and you were just trying to get those first 5 clients and offer them this price? Just want to understand from a marketing perspective, how did you
Yeah.
pitch?
So I told people that when I was meeting with them, like you're a
Ah, right.
founding
Okay.
client. I did because I didn't, when the algorithms on social media are so confusing these days, they change their minds all the time. And so I didn't want there to be a social post that blew up later on and then having to potentially deal with that down the line of maybe like 20,000 people saw this one post and there's 100 people that are wanting to get the founding client rate and then having to deal with that. So I was trying to have happy medium. Um, and so it was more so word of mouth because my business, I also like the idea of it always having a concierge boutique feel and people talk. So I let there be a little bit of word of mouth within the singing community and like the music conservatory that I went to about like being a founding client, which I think really appealed to some people because people want to feel like special because they
Mm,
are.
yep.
Um, but you can also say that you were one of somebody who you think is really cool what they're building up. You were one of their first clients, and that's a fun thing to say.
No, I wanted to ask this question where you've been working
Sure.
9 to 5, and this
Mm-hmm.
happened where one day you've been told your role has been made redundant, and you can't work anymore in this
Mm-hmm.
in your firm. That decided to start your business. You have built that skill set and expertise for n number of years before starting your business. And when you
Yeah.
went to your client, I need two things to be clarified. One is, how did you have the confidence that said, okay, I have my skill sets, I'll be able to add value to
Mm-hmm.
someone when I start my own business?
Sure.
Second, how did you influence and convince the first client that you'll be able to help? Because you are a newbie in the business, right? I mean, you're someone new, you
Yeah.
don't have any
Yeah,
experience
of
in
course.
manage clients outside of 9 to 5. And how did that happen? I mean, I'm curious to know about that.
Yeah, so it actually goes this the confidence kind of ties into why my business is called Good Eye Aesthetics. I actually only have technically one good eye, and I wore an eye patch for 10 years growing up to correct a lazy eye. And so if you have
Oh,
to wear an eye patch, if you have to be a child going to school wearing an eye
okay.
patch, it gives you a good sense of humor, but also, like, it kind of makes you have to have some level of confidence, right? But I do think to a certain extent I was born with that. There are videos of me, like, my mom pulling out the video recorder, like the camera, and I would, like, be shoving my siblings out of the way to be in front of the camera and the frame. So I do think that I was born with a lot of that. And also being a performer and an artist, like I've gone out and had to ride a tricycle on a stage and like all the crazy things. So it just becomes like of if when you are an artist and you're having to audition and stuff all the time, you have to have
Mm,
confidence when you
okay.
walk into a room. And you also become really okay with the answer no. Because if you are not okay with the answer no, you will not survive. And I feel like there's a lot of parallels between being an auditioning artist and also running your own business because the majority of the time, like, you might never hear back from somebody that you reached out to, and the answer just simply might be no. And it's not that I'm incapable or not talented or skilled. It's just maybe I'm not a right fit for them. And that's fine. So you have to, so I've learned that over time. And obviously it's easier said than done, right? Like
Right.
I
Yep.
might lose a client where I'm like, I really thought it was a fit. Um, but I am a big believer that like the opportunities that are meant for you will not pass you by. So and I know that that can be kind of corny, but it's true. Um,
No,
and
I believe
with
in
my
that as
first
well. I'm sorry to interrupt. I
yeah,
believe in that as well. That's what I was
no,
smiling. Sorry.
please. Well, that's important. Um, no, you're totally fine. I'm glad that you also are of the belief
Yes, I
that
I
everything
believe
is
strongly in
happening. Yeah.
universe and its power, and it is a
Mhm.
superpower, and it does everything beyond our control. So now
Yeah.
we both think so that is something it's meant to happen. It's meant to happen. I mean, we can't stop that. Sorry to interrupt the flow. I mean,
And then
please.
no,
Like
you're totally fine. And your second question was how I had the confidence
to
to book my
to
first client. Is
to
that what it was?
convince the client. Yeah. To
Sure. Well, as you can tell, I could monologue for like days. I could talk to a brick wall. So I just like you never you never know what's actually going to when it's your first client and you're closing your first deal, like I didn't know it was going to happen, but I did research on like what the best process was, and I'm a big proponent of following people on social media who might be a couple of steps ahead of you
mm,
in a career. So you have somebody to look up to, you have a role model, you have things to base your systems off of, especially when you're starting out. So I just made sure that I was prepared as possible. I sent her a scope of work document and a deck and everything following up with our meeting and gave her all of the information could possibly have and was very specific where I was like if you have any questions, comments, concerns, like you can text me, you can call me. So being very available because that is something that the client is paying for, is
mm,
access to you. So I think being very open and also saying like, "You are one of my founding clients." And I just, was very candid. I was like, "You're one of my first clients, but I feel very confident that I can deliver what you want, and I'm looking forward to you like being my first client. Like this is a very exciting thing for both of us." And I feel like I had enough samples of work and was able to share that, and have it ready if somebody wanted to see it?
mm.
So, I just had to remind myself going into that meeting that I am prepared. Imposter syndrome is, like, a huge thing that people have been talking about these days, right? Where
Yes.
all of a sudden you're like, "Should I be in this room? Like, what am I doing here?" So, I just try and remind myself sometimes, like, you learned how to build websites in 2020 during the pandemic. That is, you've had time to work on it, right? Um, you have always been told growing up that you have a good eye, which I thought was doubly hilarious because of the eye patch. Um, and that this client, like, I also had the confidence that she came to me, you know, which I think is a little, that might have been a different feeling,
Uh,
you know?
yep.
Right. So I can't speak from the opposite perspective because that's not what happened to me. Um, but I think just knowing that the world was going to go on if I got a no the first time, like we live on a floating rock. So,
Yep.
um, yeah.
I'm gonna go back to the first to your response, which was related to getting a first client, and you mentioned you put a
Hmm.
post on Instagram, and you also
Yeah.
mentioned that there was an aspect of subconsciousness
Hmm.
which triggered the client to come to you. Was it a strategic move, or that post the way did you? I want to know, how did you design the post,
Uh
and
huh.
did you have any human psychology elements in that, so that will trigger that curiosity? Someone is reading the post and they would want to come to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, whenever I'm making content on social media, I at least try to think from the perspective of, is this something that I would want to see? Right? So I'm thinking from I'm sorry, I just got
No, it's
the
all right.
coffee was
All
kind
good.
of
Have some water
um
if you want.
no, um there we go. Still awake. Um I whenever I'm making social posts, I am thinking about like, is this something that would be interesting for me to see on my feed? Right? Is this a
Mm,
value add? Or is this just bubblegum, right? And it was a day in the life vlog, which I wasn't anticipating would be something that would bring in a bunch of clients. But I do find that people were like, oh, this is interesting. This is because I think the day was me working on business stuff. And then I also had to make recordings for opera companies. And so it was like it was a busier day, right?
mm,
And so it was some behind the scenes, like seeing I made sure that when I was doing more B-roll footage to fill the vlog out, that there was some visual element of showing like designs that I had been working on, right? So they're seeing it, they're seeing samples of my work whilst also being like, well, what's her morning routine? What's she gonna do after this? So I kind of sandwich it in and make it
right.
feel really natural because I think a lot of brands try and shove their services and all that stuff like down your throat. And I try to make it more like candid, authentic. Um, so with that post, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to book a bunch of clients, but I was like, people need to see the behind the scenes of like, I'm starting this thing. So then they develop an emotional attachment to it and they're curious and like they want to be a part of the journey. Even if that means that they're not a client, if somebody's engaging with that content, it's still beneficial.
Yep.
And she actually,
Uh,
the client liked a t-shirt that I was wearing and she was like, it was, do you know of the Real Housewives? Like the
yeah.
American franchises?
Yes. Yes.
I was wearing, um, this is not like this is not business advice. I was wearing Countess Luann. She was on the Real Housewives of New York. I was
Yep.
wearing her
She was.
mugshot
Yes.
on a t-shirt.
And someone was a
And
fan
she
of.
was like,
Was someone a fan of her? The
yeah,
client who said like the T-shirt was.
yes. Well, she said that she saw my work and that anyone that had like the sense of humor to like have Countess Luann's mugshot on a t-shirt was somebody that she wanted to work with.
Right. Oh,
So
okay.
so it's not even that you have to wear like a mugshot t-shirt. It's that you're showing people your humanity when you're posting your content on social media and they form an attachment. Like she was like, she's funny. I want to work and her stuff looks good. I want to work with her.
Work with her. Yep.
Because right, because you want to like who you work with and who you hire because you have to spend some time with them.
With in this current world, branding is very important. To promote your
Yeah.
product, you need to brand yourself,
Mhm.
and you need to
Yeah.
come up with a way that brand grows as well. So you should have a strategy. You should have a plan, a game plan. How do we take this brand forward? The
Yeah.
question I wanted to ask you is: you are in the marketing firm, you have the marketing experience, so you know the ins and outs of branding, all the technical aspects of how to promote a brand and build a brand. Someone who's listening, mm, take for example myself. I'm not in the brand. I'm not in the marketing. I don't have marketing experience. So, what is the advice
Sure.
would you like to give, or tips or insights that you can share to someone who want to promote, or I want to promote my brand? What can I do?
Yeah. Do you mean in general or on social media?
Uh, social media. Let's talk about
General.
social media. Yeah.
Okay. So with social media, what I do, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to take on social media management clients and then manage their socials.
Mm,
I am not of that belief. I think that when you're having your brand and you're responsible for it, you're the one who knows it the best. And that means that you actually know how to best promote it on social media, but you might not have the infrastructure to do so.
right.
So
Yep.
with your brand, it's kind of like you have to zoom out for a second and think of how do you want to be perceived online? What are some things that you would want people to see and within half a second they're like, "Oh, I'm going to watch this. Oh, I want to see like what your day in the life is. And so that would come with building what are called content pillars or buckets. And so maybe you'd have like three categories that you're trying to hit in a given week with your brand. So like for you with your podcast, you would
Mm.
want to be able to you would want to market
Yep.
your upcoming episode with some vertical clips on Instagram. So that would be one bucket. Another bucket might be you want to show people like your behind the scenes and how you find people to have on the podcast because that's something that you would be interested in.
Right.
And then a potential third bucket, right? So I help people build out that in addition to their branding. This is assuming that you already have like a logo, brand
Yes.
guidelines, etc. And if you don't, I would encourage you to look into like building a deck for yourself and having like a document to go back to. So if you get stumped with, I don't know how I want to message this marketing campaign, then you have some framework built out for you. So that basically means then your brand guidelines, you go through like, this is how we want to communicate with people. These are some taglines that we have. And then you have some evergreen content to go back to, which also leads to brand consistency and people being able to recognize your brand. And I also feel like when you're on social media and you're depicting your brand, there is kind of like this blurred line these days with seeing somebody's personal life and professionalism, because people want to know like they probably want to know you more, right? They might want to
Mhm.
know like what your life is like and like what's led you to this point into like having your own podcast. So like thinking about what people might be curious about, asking third party perspectives like your friends and family, like if you didn't know me based off of this social media profile, would you know what my business is about? Would you know what I am about and what
Mm.
gaps are missing? So I think you constantly kind of have to be evaluating, going back to the drawing board and saying, like, say that you're going to plan your content at the beginning of every week, thinking about like what did well last week? Why did it go well? Did I get any responses from people? And not that you wanna, like, people please, like, one person who really likes your content, like, you're not like, making it for them is great, but I would say that for me, I love to just make things and post them, but I've recently kind of tried to reel back and be more strategic about,
Okay.
like, how are people going to be like perceiving this? What is this conveying? Because with my personal social media, you're like, she never sleeps. Another element I have is like, I have affiliate links and brands will repost my content using their products. And I just got gifted my first product from a brand to try out and then like have
Yep.
a code and earn commission from. And so when I'm starting to make brand partnerships, you need to think about like, why would they want to gift you PR? What are you offering to them?
Right.
So it's very much putting yourself in the shoes of a potential client or consumer of your content and saying like, what can they get out of this? Does it add value to their life? And that the value add could just be like, oh, that made them feel good or that made them laugh, right? It could also be educational. But for people that are building out their business and wondering, like, how do I market? Like, marketing at the end of the day, in its simplest form, is storytelling. So if you go
Yep.
back to your why of like why you started the business and how you ended up where you're at, that's two social posts right there. That's a piece of short form content. That can be long form content for YouTube. All of this stuff can be repurposed, right? So it's just kind of going back to the drawing board and constantly, I have a notes section where if I have content idea, I'll just drop it there and I can revisit it if I'm feeling stumped because we
Mm.
can't wait for creativity to strike or motivation. It's all about discipline and getting repetitions in. And I also have just started building out infrastructure for email marketing because that is an untapped market as well. So, trying to scale marketing for your business in a way that's not overwhelming. So, I would pick two social media platforms that make the most sense for you
Okay.
and starting from there. So, I would say like Instagram is a really good platform, especially if your work is visual.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's all about the feed and the grid, and um, I would say also LinkedIn is really good for making connections. That's how
Yep.
we got connected. So, that, and then ultimately thinking about like what your end goal is. Like, does your brand have any like other brands to look up to? Because I think that you need to find three inspiration brands or businesses that you are like, I really like what they're doing, and finding out why, and using those whys and integrating it in your own content and seeing how it does. Because you kind of have to experiment with it a little bit too. Because like Duolingo didn't come up with the whole like having the owl be so personified overnight. You know how Duolingo has the owl and
Yep.
everyone
Yep.
like
Yep.
knows about it because of
Every
their
yeah.
marketing? Yeah. So I
It's a
think just playing
marketing.
around with it and having fun too is important.
Wow. Okay. That's a big tip. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah.
I'll go on. Look, I'm not sure with my commitments with the family and kids. I'm not sure if I'll be able to go through the whole process what you just mentioned, but I'm gonna start
Yeah.
trying that to build the brand.
Sure.
Make sure that you start have some checkpoint to make go back and check keep checking on your
Sure.
content on your how it is or how it is performing on the platforms and get constant feedback and stuff like that. That is something interesting.
So with you, it's a time. So with you, it's like a time thing. That's kind of the,
Time, yeah, with the kids, and yes, yes,
yeah.
is a time is
I would say then with like what I'm trying to do, and I'll report back on if it's successful, is experimenting with like time blocking and seeing if you can set aside like an hour a week, maybe half an hour a week
right,
that's dedicated just to social media, because you are getting content right now, and so you can find ways to repurpose it, and you can schedule out content. You can make boilerplate copy, which basically means like captions for social media that are editable for you, that you have set hashtags and everything at the ready, so you can just copy paste and try and make yourself some systems so time doesn't become as much of a hindrance. The building of
right,
systems takes time, but it's
okay.
just so important. Yeah.
And how often do you post content on IG and other platforms? Like, I've heard about this
Yeah, I
algorithms and stuff. So have you experimented that, and have you seen any tangible results?
yes. So Instagram and TikTok are different beasts. TikTok rewards you used to reward you posting a lot. I've noticed that my video content on Instagram has been performing better than TikTok, and I try to post like 5 times a week.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. But one of the things that I've started doing is, and I'm reworking it right now, but I do a brain dump every day in the morning. So you know how I told you that I like prepare
Yes.
my day by doing different things. So I brain dump, which is a form of cognitive offloading where I write down anything that's on my mind just to like start my day.
Yep.
And so something I started doing was having like a morning meeting to hold myself accountable, since I was no longer having a boss in a 9 to 5 situation. And I was just posting that on social media. So that became an easy piece of content, right? That I'm doing every single day. And um,
Oh wow. So
just
take me
kind of
through that.
going through
Sorry,
like what's
morning
on my
meeting.
mind.
I'm sorry, Regan, to stop you there. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
No, please.
It's very interesting that when you mentioned morning meeting. So are you saying you get up in the morning, you write down the to do stuff on a piece of paper,
Hmm.
then you have a morning meeting and post that as a content on social media? And what
Yes.
does
On
give me an
like
example of morning meeting? What is it? What is it?
on my and that's on my personal feed. And I will like tag my business and stuff like that or mention it in the copy. But it feels more like an extension of like my personal socials because it's me and my experience, and that's less so in alignment with brand messaging and what I want to have on Good Eye Aesthetics Instagram feed. So I always have the same exact notebook. I like open it and I start talking to people and say, "Good morning, welcome to my morning meeting. This is where I go through the brain dump that I just did to have a successful day as a founder, opera singer, Pilates instructor, the list goes on." And then I kind of talk through what's on my mind. because people who are starting their own businesses and are doing all of these things that are unconventional, kind of there can be a feeling of isolation and it helps, I think it helps build community, and people are genuinely curious about like what a day looks like for people that are multi-passionates in particular, I've noticed. Um and how I have the time in the day to do all of the things that I want to do, which I frequently wish there's more time in the day. We both want to have more time. Um so I just go through it, kind of talk through what's on my mind.
Mm.
Um, and then that's it. But I try and keep it brief. Like nobody needs to see me monologue for 3 minutes. So I try, you know, so I try and entertaining as that may or may not be. Um, I try and keep it under 3 minutes. Also on Instagram, your video content can't be longer than 3 minutes. TikTok is like, let's keep you on this app forever, right? So they're like, you can post up 10 minutes. I'm not doing that.
Oh,
But I've started doing some more educational value add morning meeting related posts where I'm talking about like what is a brain dump, why is it important, how is it beneficial to you? Because otherwise it just turns into like, oh, there's this girl, she's reading off her to-do list. Next. So I've been reconceptualizing it because it actually has been really good for holding me accountable. And I don't always have time to like respond to everyone's calls and texts and stuff when I'm just like knee deep in work and focusing. And so if they just want to see what I'm doing today, they can go on Instagram or TikTok and say like, what's Reagan going to do in her morning meeting? So that's like something that kills two birds with one stone because it's something that I need to do in my daily routine. And I can just set my phone up and pretend that you and I are having a meeting together and I'm talking about what's on my mind and what I'd like to get accomplished today.
wow.
Um and for me that also holds me accountable because I'm like I've told the internet that I will be finishing a website today and so therefore I should. And that might be generational. um
Right.
but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, no, this. Look, everyone has their own journey. So if that helps you and that helps you to work efficiently and work better, definitely go for it. You know what I mean? That's interesting. The morning meeting. I
Yeah.
never heard of someone doing a morning meeting on a social media and sharing what your day will look like
Mhm.
um for the next few hours. So that is fantastic. Look, we are coming to an end. I have one last question.
Sure.
What advice would you give artists or anyone who want to turn their talent into both purpose and profit?
Mm. Well, I would say that if you're an artist, that you already have the creative capability of doing anything that you have in here. I would say that you need to focus on learning how to build systems that work for you. And build yourself infrastructure so you can set yourself up for success because you can have
Mm,
all of the great ideas and everything like is perfect. You have a Fortune 500 company in here, but without strategy, you're not going to get there. So I would say like be a human sponge, find some people to look up to on social media and listening to podcasts. Just really like allow yourself to constantly be learning and giving yourself grace because you've probably never done this before, right? And so you're an artist and you understand the fact that sometimes things take 6 hours when you thought they would take 1.
yep.
And so I would just say to give yourself grace and flexibility and also like you don't want to look back when you're 80 and say I wish I did that thing. And the main two you have two people that you need to make sure you're making proud. Your past self and your future self.
Wow. I thought
And
you're gonna
um
tell someone, but interesting you said the past and the future. That's
well
I thought
because you
you will say parents or friends or someone, but
well,
that was a
yes,
very
them too, but you're stuck with yourself for your entire life. Like if you're really feeling like you need to do something, you need to do it. Otherwise you have to be okay with somebody else getting the idea and doing it. And I don't know about you, but if I didn't follow through, I would have to be okay with somebody else getting the idea ultimately and doing it instead. So I would say building infrastructure, believing in yourself, and also Scheduling time to rest. I have a hard time picking I force myself to rest 1 day a week. No matter what
Right.
you're doing, no matter what you're building, if you don't choose the time to rest, your body will do it for you.
I
So,
understand.
I think
Yep.
yeah, I would say that you need to build the infrastructure and give yourself grace and hope for the best. And know that it's okay if you have failures. Failures are not a bad thing. They're not. They're
No.
kind of they're helping you streamline the path that is yours.
Yep.
And you don't want to be going down a path that's not meant for you.
I see failure as a data for future where you don't make the same mistakes. You know what I mean? So it's a data you
Yeah.
have. That's something you collate and you keep it with yourself. And maybe if not you, someone else will use the data to not to repeat that same mistake, and try
Yeah.
something else. But that's Regan. Look, thank you so much. We have come to the end of the show, and it was a very interesting chat. And thank you for taking us through your journey. How did you get your first
Sure.
client, second client,
Yeah.
third client? I'm pretty sure someone who's listening will benefit a lot from this, from your experience, and we're
I
wishing you
hope
all the
so.
best
Thank you so much.
with your business as well. So thank you.
Thank you.